You are making your life a heck a lot easier if you choose to just be content with what is at this point in time right now.
Imagination and narrative we're giving is that we're not good enough, we're terrible web designers, we're terrible business people. Is it something we said?
What did we do wrong?
You can absorb the thing that happened to you and rebound it back out into the world.
Free.
Just be free. Free yourself. Hi guys, in today's video podcast, we're going to talk about an awesome book that me and Rosh absolutely love. It's called The Gap and the
Gain.
And we're going to talk about how you can transform every experience into a gain in your life. If you're struggling right now with something that life has dealt with you, then stay tuned to watch this video. So we'll catch you in a bit. Okay, so guys, The Gap and the Gain is a really awesome book because it talks about things that happen in your life, like your wife gets annoyed with you, or your dog barks at you, or you forgot to put out the rubbish out that day and you've got a build up of rubbish happening in your house. And we go through things in life where we're not necessarily happy with what's happening, but we kind of accept it and we move on. And we always compare what our life could be to someone else's, potentially a celebrity on Instagram, or basically a sports star or a movie star. And we always compare things in our life, events, to this ideal and this perfection. And from that, we create this gap. And from that gap, we feel stressed, we feel worried, we feel anxious, we feel annoyed. And it really leaves us in a negative space in which we don't appreciate things in our lives. And we don't feel grateful that things happen in that order. And that's where The Gap and the Gain comes in. It's a book that really highlights the importance of looking at the gains in your life. The things that happened today that you really made a difference. The 3 wins that you created for today. The 3 clients that you won today. The 3 good deeds that you did this week. Whether that's helping an old lady cross the road, or whether it was giving your kid a pat on the back for doing well in his exams. And these tiny little gains accumulate and compound over a week or over a month. And it's important to write these down, to journal and write them in the book or write them on your phone and just measure the gains that you're having in your life. So yeah, that's my interpretation of the book. And I'd really love to know what Roshni thinks as well and what you got from The Gap and the Gain.
It is looking at that distinction between the gap and the gain. And what are you going to choose to focus on? You know, we're all going to go through plenty of experiences throughout our day, week, month, which aren't ideal, which we can easily perceive as negative or as bad. But it's like, are you going to choose to dwell on essentially the gap is like what's missing still, and I've still got X number of way to go in my business, or however you perceive the gap? Or are you going to choose to dwell or think about, actually, here are my wins for the day, here are my wins for the week, here's how far I've come from just a month ago, and look at the gain that you're making all the time. And you are making gains. You're making gains, however small, every single day. So it really is just about making that distinction between the two.
Yeah, and like Rosh was saying, is like, no matter how big or small, the gains are always there in your life. And it's not necessarily like putting the trash out that day was like, oh my gosh,
What's your obsession with trash?
Putting the trash out that day was like such a
funny because I always take out the trash.
Or like, I don't know, choosing to eat healthy that day, adding less sugar in your tea or coffee, adding less cream. These tiny little things, we don't really celebrate them, and we come from a place of scarcity rather than abundance.
Yeah.
And it's really just shifting your mind to focus on those tiny little gains every day.
Yeah, even if you've gone shopping for the week, and it's like, I've got all my favorite food in for the week, and now I don't have to worry about doing all the rest of the week, or I've got my food prep done for the whole week, so I don't have to worry about dinner for the whole week. I don't know, whatever gain however small, big, in your business, in your personal life, in your relationships, it is just about choosing to focus on how far you've come rather than what's still missing. And I think the book makes it clear that it doesn't mean you don't make goals and have aspirations, but it's about being grateful for what you have currently and where you've come. And then, right? It's not like saying to you, oh, you can't have goals and aspirations, and still look at like, okay, these are things I still want to do.
Yeah, and it's not like saying that you don't strive for that ideal or that success. And it's like, that ideal and success moves and inspires you to get to there.
Yeah.
But if you don't reach that ideal or that success that you're so we to, you don't feel deflated or upset because of it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. I think you've just hit the nail on the head. We all have goals and aspirations, especially if you're a business owner, especially if you're, progressing in your career, whatever it is, if you're a new parent. And just knowing that as human beings, and just in life generally, you're not always going to hit exactly where you want to hit, like that goal. You're always going to be a little bit off or, So I think it's just about focusing on and being grateful for the work you've put in, the time you've put in, and just having that gratitude.
Yeah, and I think it is just like a classic thing where an archer is aiming for the bullseye, and you train every day to get that bullseye on that goal, and you really focus and you're laser targeted to it. But there are things in life that happen, like the wind blows, or the tree that you're aiming for with the bullseye suddenly moves slightly, or someone moves in front of the tree.
Yeah.
And at times you focus so hard on getting that bullseye, but at times you won't get it, and it's okay. And you become committed to your goals, but you don't necessarily become attached to them. And that's what I've learned through personal development and through leadership programs as well. Not just by reading this book, it's separating and distinguishing your commitment versus your attachment.
Yeah.
And that's what the gap and gain illustrates so beautifully. And I just love it because of it. And whenever I feel upset or down about something that's happened in my life, something that's a bad thing, whether again, like it's a client that doesn't want to work with me, my mum and dad get angry with me, my sister gets angry with me, even Roshni gets angry with me, we can transform every experience into a gain if we really wanted to.
Yeah.
And we're going to mainly focus about the last chapter in this book. And we've done other videos on this book, so feel free to check them out over here or somewhere. And we're just going to focus on, transforming those gains, those past historical events, into just beautiful gains that we can change a story and narrative about it, right?
Yeah. Okay, so the first quote from chapter 6 is, we create meaning and value. Meaning and value aren't given to us. We create our own meaning and value for every experience.
So what does that mean, Rosh?
What does that mean? That means that things happen to us in life, to us, or one can argue for us. But something will happen, and we as human beings will create a meaning out of it. We'll give it a story. So I can think of a particular scenario where, we're waiting on some client work to come through. We might be being ghosted, or it could be that client just, doesn't want to work with us at that point. And it's just like, am I going to choose to sit here and give this a meaning of like, oh, I'm not good enough, or we're not good enough, our business isn't good enough, our work isn't good enough, and all these meanings I can give that particular situation or experience? Or I can choose to focus on the gain and go, I haven't got the client work at this point. What else can I work on? I can work on my content creation. I can work on recording podcasts. I can focus on reading some books. I can use this time to better myself, better the business. And it really truly depends on what meaning I'm giving that situation. And I can either let it drag me down or help me see the gain in that.
Yeah, and I think what we can differentiate is and create cognitive distance between what actually happened was the client didn't respond to you. That's the story, and what happened. That's what happened. And what we're making it mean, and the story and the imagination and narrative we're giving is that we're not good enough, we're terrible web designers, we're terrible business people. Is it something we
What
said?
did we do wrong?
What did we do wrong? There's a whole plethora of our imagination that our mind can go crazy and delve into. And it's important just to differentiate the story from what happened. What happened was the client didn't respond to us. And the meaning and story is that we're not good enough, that we're horrible designers. And it's separating the two and not being fixated between merging what happened and the story and the imagination.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly how I interpret this. And the meaning is entirely our own meaning. You know, there is no like right or wrong or the truth. It is purely based on, as human beings, what meanings are we giving to individual experiences and situations.
Yeah, exactly. Beautifully said, Rosh. Yeah.
Good. There's another quote, taking ownership of your experiences. Life is simple. Everything happens for you, not to you. Everything happens at exactly the right moment, neither too soon nor too late. You don't have to like it. It's just easier if you do. And that's a quote by Byron Katie.
And what does that mean? That
Making
quote?
sure I get that right because I'm not wearing my glasses.
What do you take away from that quote?
That nothing is good or bad. There is no inherent good or bad to any situation. The good or bad comes from us human beings, because human beings, I don't know, we're just wired that way. We are wired to give experiences meanings and stories because I guess that's just how our brains cope. But I think and at the end of this quote, it's just easier if you do. You are making your life a heck a lot easier if you choose to just be content with what is at this point in time right now and just accept your life for what it is.
Yeah, like William Shakespeare said, there is no inherent good or bad, but thinking that makes it so. And that's another quote to really think about here is, like Roshni said, we can either think of things objectively and kind of add no meaning, or we can think of things subjectively and create that meaning and story and narrative around it.
Yeah.
It's like, again, the human brain is hardwired to think negatively. Since cavemen times and since prehistoric times, you know, we were scavenging for food with like lions and tigers and like elephants running towards our pack. And it was a very dangerous time for human beings. So that negative mindset really served us amazingly back then because of all the inherent dangers around us.
Yeah.
But right now, like, there's not danger. In the Western world especially, there's no lion chasing us. We will end up not starving this week because there's no like food in the wild. There's no wild berries that we have to pick. We can't just go to Tesco's in the UK or Walmart in America and just get a meal deal.
I don't actually know.
Yeah. And we can just get those things in our local shop and we won't be hungry. And a lot of us, maybe, okay, fair enough. Some of us are struggling and we are going through poverty.
Yeah, that's not to say people aren't struggling.
For sure. But it's like, it's not as bad as it was in prehistoric times,
and
for sure.
in many, you know, Western countries, obviously.
It's not that people aren't struggling, and 95% of people, 5% of people might have those horrible situations where life is unfair, and it's understandable that you're going through them, and we really do feel compassion, understanding of what you're going through. But the 90% of us, you know, there are simple little day things that happen, and it's our choice to whether we make such an extreme meaning and story around it, or we just move on from it.
Yeah, objectively.
Yeah.
And I like to always remember this thing that as bad as my life might seem right now, or I might feel like I'm not where I want to be, anything like that, I always think there are people more disadvantaged in this world that would kill to be in my situation right now. And I think everyone can look at that to some extent, that there are people who would look at your situation and go, you are so lucky, you know? And yeah, I think that's just that's just something that I like to use in my I guess, in my daily gratitude. There's another section to this chapter, free yourself from justification. When people stop spending their energies or justifying what they want, they free themselves up to focus on creativity and innovation. And I like this, and I definitely find this in our business. We're business owners. If we choose to always focus on where we are not yet, or what we still want to achieve in the business, and and all of these things, we're constantly focused on the gap, and it kind of blocks us from thinking of new ideas and to create new things that actually better the business. So it's almost like if you choose to focus on the gap, you're not going to have that same level of gain, or you're not going to have that same level of innovation. You're not free in the situation.
And again, it's going back to the attachment versus commitment. And if we're so attached on our goals, if we're so fixated on them, we ultimately, ironically, don't achieve them because we don't have that freedom to be more innovative, more creative, more free. And it's just bringing a bit of playfulness and lightness to your business and to your life, into your relationship, into your hobbies, into your passions, into your kids as well, and your brothers and sisters.
Free.
Just be free. Free yourself. Okay, so the next bit of the book is a really awesome part. It's called Expand Ownership of Your Life. You use your winning brain to identify, achieve, and measure daily progress, which continually expands your ownership over your life. So it's very easy in today's world to blame externals. It's very easy to blame the traffic, the weather, your family, your friends, the way your dad treated you when you were a kid, when Asian dad particularly. And it's very easy to point your fingers at other people all the time. But when you take ownership, when you take back control of your life, when you take back of the meaning and story and narrative that you're creating around that thing that happened to you in the past, you take full control and you are able to fully express it and be powerful and be more self-expressed in overcoming that adversity. And it's really coming back to your ownership and taking responsibility. The key word is responsibility. Something happened to you when you were in the past. Something happened to you when you were a kid. But how about we shift it from something happened to you from an external point of view, but it's something I take ownership of the reason why it happened to me, and I can get more power from it and gain something from it rather than looking at it from a gap. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's taking your power back. It's choosing to not be a victim in a situation. And it's, and I think when you choose not to be a victim, you are gaining your power back. You are able to then think, okay, what's my next step? What's the solution to this scenario or problem or, whatever it is. And it's exactly that. You're taking responsibility for your life. And again, that's not to say that you have control over external factors or external experiences or how anybody else behaves, but you have control over what you're going to do about something, how you're going to react to something. That's taking ownership of our life, to me.
Benjamin Hardy really talks about in the book, and Dan Sullivan, is this awesome distinction called psychological flexibility. And I really find this fascinating because it's a comparison of people that are in a high hope mindset and people who are in a low hope mindset. And people who have psychological flexibility are like an elastic band, right? And when something bad happens to them, they don't break, they're not brittle, they're not like a wooden stick or a metal pipe. It's like a malleable, flexible subject in which something hits you, it just rebounds back. And ultimately, that's what psychological flexibility is, from my analogy and from my understanding, is, something bad happens to you, but the whole stick doesn't break because of it. The whole pipe doesn't snap. You are like an elastic band. You can absorb the thing that happened to you and rebound it back out into the world. You don't have to absorb these negative things that happen to you, and you have that flexibility to move on from it through the story and narrative that you give that bad event. There's a book in The Gap and the Gain that gets mentioned. It's called Peaks and Valleys. And it's by a quote by Spencer Johnson that the author Dan Sullivan has quoted and Benjamin Hardy has quoted. It's that the good things in people's lives happen because of what they do during their valleys, whereas the bad things in people's lives happen because what they do during their peaks. And your life is this cyclical. Your life is this cyclical up and down curve. You know, in maths, it's like a cos curve or a sine graph, a bit geeky right now. But there are going to be peaks and downs and troughs. There are going to be peaks and troughs in your life. And there will be times in which it feels like the shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
And again, it's important because when the shit really does hit the fan, when the bad shit really happens to you, it's what you make that mean and that negative spiral. You can decide to spiral more negatively and further down it, or you can choose to just accept what happened to you.
Yeah, I need to get out the profanity buzzer. Yeah, no, I exactly that. And it, you know, again in this chapter 6, it makes clear, like, it doesn't mean that you go through life wishing and hoping that bad things don't happen to you. Because again, it's just like we will all have experiences which we can deem as bad or good. But again, it's up to you how you choose to perceive that. Yeah, and just choosing to look at the gains, it's your choice. It's totally up to you how you choose to perceive a situation. It's not up to anybody else. And this is where you have control. This is where you can take back your power, is when you make a choice. The choice to look at the gain rather than the gap. Okay, so the last bit of the chapter, control your response. Successful people don't control events. They control their response to the events. So yeah, I mean, we've touched on this. It's not about the thing that's happened to you or the experience that you've gone through. It's your interpretation of that. And again, it's the meaning or story you're giving that experience, and that will totally determine like what action you take next.
Okay, so we've gone about speaking about bad things in our lives and talking about our interpretation and meaning and stories that we create. But ultimately, the next decision we choose powerfully, like Roshni mentioned about choice, is our response. Our response is absolutely key, and the key factor is our action in which we take after that bad thing happened. And that's the one thing that's really gonna overcome that adversity or that struggle, is what action we can take, what response can we add to this already bad thing. Say, for example, again, that client doesn't respond to you after you sent that proposal and you're getting worried and stressed about what they're thinking. Now, a great example or action that you could do would be just send a following up email to them. That could be our response. Or we could work on another project and work on another client and see if we can get work from that part of our business. And that's the response that we can choose there. So there's many different responses that we can do to the actual bad event that happened. And that is really transforming your negative experience into a gain and living into the gain, because we are responding to choose powerfully from it.
And choosing to respond powerfully.
Choosing to respond powerfully from it.
Yeah.
The response is absolutely key. And it's all great feeling all happy and positive about this negative thing and turning it on its head. But the one thing that really is going to make the difference in it is our response.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can think of as a response as well, or example from your life where you chose a different response or something that made you choose differently?
Yeah, like a particular time could be, you know, when we both had COVID over Christmas. We couldn't see our family, we couldn't see our friends. We were stuck in our tiny little flat. And we could have easily have chosen that time or looked at that time as you know, oh, like, why us? Why is it that we get to be stuck here and not have fun like everybody else? But actually we flipped it on its head and we used that time. We watched a whole load of stuff on like Skillshare, on YouTube. We brushed up on skills. We wrote like we did stuff for our business. And even like some self-care things that just helped us recover better and faster. because we chose to focus on the gain of the situation. So it was almost like life had handed us this amount of time. So it's like, what am I going to do with this time? Am I just going to sit here and cry about it? Or am I going to use this time valuably? Because I'm not going to get the time back. So I'm going to choose to focus on the gain. And it was our response to that situation.
It's not to say that we weren't upset or distraught about the thing that happened to us. And me and Rosh make it really clear. We can get upset, we can cry, we can get angry, we can shout to some certain extent and really show that negative emotional side. But we give ourselves a time allowance. We give ourselves maybe a couple of hours that day, or we give ourselves half an hour of that situation, or maybe even a day or two to wallow in it. But once we've got all that negative expression out of us, we can then focus on that gain.
We can move forward.
We can move forward together.
Yeah.
But it just takes that little shift in our mindset and our approach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And so, I think the way that we'd like to wrap this up today is we'll look at what Vern and I have taken from the Gap in the Gain book. We, at the end of the day now, count our 3 wins. So it could be that I remind Vern or Vern reminds me before bed, hey, what 3 wins did we have for the day? Because then we end the day on a positive. We look at how far we've come rather than what is still missing. So that's definitely one great thing that we've taken after reading this book, and one thing that I think definitely has transformed our mindset.
Yes, so to like reiterate what Roshni was saying, I think it's in chapter 4 of this book or chapter 5. Don't quote me, Dan or Benjamin, if you're watching this. I hope you're watching it. But one of the awesome distinctions that we got from the book was this awesome little tool, counting your 3 wins daily, your 3 daily wins at the end of each day. And they can be small or big or tiny or absolutely large. And it's just being in this kind of habitual practice of creating wins on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And no matter how small or big, like I've said now about 5 times, it doesn't matter the win. It could be like, again, putting the rubbish outside or something else that is a win for you.
Yeah.
And it's just so important to practice these on a daily thing, and you create like a compound effect. So there's 3 wins that you create on Monday, then get added to the Tuesday one, and then get added to the Wednesday one, and Thursday one, and Friday one. And by the time the week finishes, you've got like 21 wins for the whole day.
For sure. And I mean, you guys have probably heard of like making a gratitude list. This is kind of something similar, and you could just sort of do that, is like look at what the 3 things you're grateful for every single day and end your day on that note.
So thank you so much for watching today's podcast.
And for listening.
Oops, okay. Thank you so much for watching today's podcast and our video part of it. And we're really excited for you to join us on this journey of reading The Gap and the Gain. If you really enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up on YouTube and write a comment below on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify or the Apple Podcast platform,
wherever you're listening
in the stratosphere of the internet, we ask you to give us a rating of 5 stars minimum. Or maybe 4 stars.
That's all we will accept.
Actually 5 stars, please. And I really appreciate that. It's been wicked talking to you guys out there.
And thank you so much for listening.
Talking to Rosh about this book. Have you enjoyed it as well?
I definitely have enjoyed it. And we definitely recommend you go out and get yourself a copy of The Gap and Gain, or you listen on Audible. It's definitely a book that we recommend.
100%. And if Dan or Benjamin, you're reading this and you want us or listening to this, feel free to hit us up and we'll be featured on your channel, and you can feature on our channel as well. And we would love to have you, Mr. Benjamin Hardy, Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Please come on. Thank you so much, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you later. Bye.
Feel free to check out some of our other videos now on Roshni's head.
Oh, great. Bye.